Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much for joining our virtual workshop, Meet the Funder, Access to Capital with Founders First and Women in Cloud. I first want to start off and introduce our moderator, Chai or Chaitra from Women in Cloud. And Chai, I'll let you introduce yourself and then we'll turn it over.
Thank you so much. First, just welcome everyone. So excited to see all of you. And Kim and Tracy, thank you for giving us an opportunity to be here with you all. I'm Chaitra Vedulapalli. I am CMO at Mela, as well as president of Women in Cloud. I'm usually known as an industry-leading co-sell go-to-market expert, where I harness my expertise to solve the most pressing go-to-market challenges that are faced by tech brands and companies. My mission is to really help you accelerate your growth and your success. And the way we do is by meticulously creating a tailored go-to-market plan that leverages the power of the digital solution and facilitates a strategic partnership with hyperscalers like Microsoft, Google, and Amazon of the world. So today we are all here, and I see all of you here. So I want to start with first engaging is, when you think about getting access to funding, what is the amount you're looking for funding? Let's say I give you a magic wand. Tell me, how much do you need to really make a profitable company for yours? Put it in the chat for me. And then also tell me where you're coming from and what's your solution that you're building in the market. I see you, Crystal, Julie, Virginia, Yasmin. As we are waiting for your response, let me talk about. Usually when you're thinking about building $1 million company, especially a tech company, you do need to have a minimum of $250,000 to get started. You need that because you may want to hire talent, you want to build this technology solution, you need that. You need a minimum step, but once you start growing up the chain, you need more and more. That's where we have Kim Folsom and her team who will come in and kind of guide you is how to think about accessing that capital. And she will go and present today what the whole details are, and then we'll do moderated Q&A. Will that be good? Tell me in the chat, say yes. The more engagement we have, the better the conversation is going to be. Say in the chat, yes or no. Okay, going to the perfect. We like one yes is a good answer. So let's get to the next slide, please. Let me do the introduction for Kim. Kim and I know for the last probably a year and a half, I've been admiring her for her leadership as a entrepreneur, and she's a serial entrepreneur, and now she's the chair and a CEO of Founders First Capital. But what caught my attention is the details of what it takes for a company to be a profitable company. She knows exactly what it takes and also the formula behind it. And right now she's focused on providing that capital access for most of the founders, especially Black and women-led founders, through her revenue-based venture platform. And this is a very innovative way of how you access funding. And Kim has dedicated herself in leveraging the power of the market forces, sound business practices, which address the disparities in revenue and also job growth among the businesses who are led by women, people of color, LGBT, veterans, and they're operating in low to moderate income areas. Kim, we are really excited to have you here, and also thank you for giving me the opportunity to moderate you today. So with that, I will hand over the baton for you to explain how this model works.
Certainly. Well, welcome everyone. Delighted to be here. And I'm going to start out by giving you an overview about our company, Founders First Capital Partners, and what we do. So first, I look at, my work coming to support women and diverse founders from across the table. As Chaitra mentioned, I'm a serial entrepreneur. 5 of my prior 6 companies were tech companies. And so I took my companies, each of them from idea to 8 figures, and exited 3 of those companies. And through that journey, raised over across those companies $30 million. Most of it was equity, but some of it was debt as well. But it was a really challenge going through that exercise. And so really have looked to leverage that experience and journey to help others have a better time of it. At least, minimally share my experience and playbook on how to do it. So, the reality is the fastest growing area of growing businesses are businesses led by women and folks of color and women of color. And so recognizing that dynamic, we are able to leverage our area of expertise to help them with growth. So with that, our mission is to address the gap in growth capital that's needed to help businesses led by women and diverse founders to grow to be that 10 million plus, and to do it in an intentional way. The way that we do it is not just focused on writing a check. It's also, in addition to that, it's providing the know-how, connections, and advocacy to provide capital to help them with growing jobs, value, and wealth creation for the founders and themselves. Why we do it is because, the vast majority of 99.5% of capital goes to folks that are not represented by this left corner. And we specifically have a focus on companies that are focused on business to business or business to government, and have revenues north of $500,000 to $10 million of revenues. Next slide, please. One of the methods we do this is what we think of it as shared economic capital model. So, and that's different, and that it's represented by revenue-based financing, and it's not the same as merchant cash advance or factoring. And so I can share with you a little bit about what that means. So, interestingly enough, in the 25 years ago, when I was in my more entrepreneurial journey, there's more options available to help business owners with growing capital. There's, traditional bank debt, and then there's also, merchant cash advance, which are, has been utilized by more e-commerce companies or retail shops, but that's a way of getting access to capital. Going back to the bank debt, you generally have to have collateral like equipment or assets that you can pledge against as alternative forms of repayment. The third one in is revenue-based financing, which is where we fall into. It's non-dilutive compared to others. But it really focuses on providing capital based on the strength of your revenues, not necessarily just based on your, the assets that you pledge, which is needed for traditional bank, and also not taking a fraction of every single, e-commerce transaction. And then the other is more on the equity side. There's angel investors that can provide capital to, help companies with startup by taking an ownership stake in the company. And then additionally, there's the CPG, which are crowdfunding for CPG companies, crowdfunding, which can help them with growth. But you need to have a, established base of people to be able to respond to who you are and what you've done in the market. It works best with, brands that have sold, tens of thousands of things, so that they can use that base to get folks to also endorse their product. Some examples of those are like Kickstarter and Start Engine and those type of companies. And then the last, for more, larger investments to core tech and life science companies that have the ability to have a substantial exit, there's more institutional VC capital. And these are the various sources that are available. And I want to share with you, it's not that you may just only get one of them. Depending on where you are in your journey, you may take advantage of multiples of these depending on where your business is. Next slide, please. So this gives you a little bit more insight about, the method that we focus on, which is the, shared success capital in the form of, that represents the form of revenue-based financing as an alternative way to fund growth of businesses, that gives them a way of getting access to 6 or 7 figures of capital without them having to sell portions of their business. It's a structured exit type of a situation, so that, monthly payments are made, and with that structured exit, it's generally paid to a cap. And then after that cap happens, there's not any further obligation. It can have either fixed or flexible payments depending on the situation for the business. And then the other thing is, there's minimal financial covenants, non-dilutive, and it doesn't, it's not focused on your FICO score. Next slide, please. And then just going through and looking at the differences of revenue-based financing comparison to, the other extremes, be it equity capital or asset-based lending from traditional banks. So again, on the variable method of revenue-based financing, is it's flexible. There's limited amount of covenants that you incur. You don't have to give up a board seat or pledge your assets, so there's not a collateral. It's based on the strength of your business assets, so you don't have to pledge any personal assets. The interests are aligned with your performance, so you could see those bars kind of going up and down on to the right side of the slide here. And so you have some variability or flexibility of your loan payment based on your performance of your company. The way that Founders First does it, you also get wraparound advice that goes along with this. And then the other side of it is that, the founder retains the ownership of the business upon the repayment. So, you're able to, not have to give up a huge amount of your company to get access to this capital. Next slide. This gives you some idea about the qualification for, the type of funding that we provide. We have 2 categories. One is both a term, which is can be either a year to 5 years, and the fundings can range. The initial funding amount can range from $50,000 to $1 million, and then we can do follow-ons up to $2 million, and it's a fixed payment over a period of time. And then on the variable product, it's a 2 to 5 year period, similar, allocations, but the way that you pay it back is a portion of your revenues on a monthly basis, and it's paid back to an agreed upon cap. And the payment is based on an agreed upon royalty amount of your monthly payments that can range between 3 to 5%. On the left side of this, you can see the characteristics of businesses that are generally revenue $1 million and higher. They may fall into one of these, underserved categories. We seek to have the business ideally profitable, break even, or at least less than 12 months path to profitability, that they have growing revenues or a positive trend toward growing revenues. They have recurring contracts with repeatable projects, or, ideally, a recurring revenue component. And they've been in business, at least a year and a half. This gives you just some ideas of, who this works best for as far as the type of business. Asset-light businesses, software, service-based businesses that have contracted revenues, which is defined, consulting firms as well. There are some businesses that we do not fund. That includes those in cannabis, weapons, gambling, liquor, or nonprofits. And the reason, considering why a business might move to a recurring model, just to give you some insights related to that, is that, so many businesses get started with a transaction base of, hey, I've got this project or product, and if you buy it, then, in exchange, you pay this back. But having a more recurring revenue model really helps with being able to allow that predictability for growth and scale and cash flows to help the business grow. And, having those recurring, retainer or subscription payments can really help with getting access to capital as well. So the predictability is important of, cash flows. That's why either retainer or subscription. This just doesn't happen, overnight. It requires really understanding the needs of your customer and the critical needs of the customer, and being able to have those critical needs associated with scaling, expense management is critical, visibility to monthly recurring models, and then the durability. And those are reasons why, the more companies have some predictable subscription revenue, the better suited that they are to be able to grow. Next slide. This gives you an idea of a success story of a company that we have done actually a couple of fundings with and helped them grow. And this is a tech-enabled company. This company is Quality Interactions. Ashley Agodama is their president and COO. They're based in Boston, Massachusetts, but they have a e-learning type of platform that helps hospitals and health providers with obtaining needed compliance education to improve the care of their patients. And when we started working with them, they were, I want to say, a five-figure company, mid-five-figure company, and have been able to grow substantially their revenues over the couple year plus period that we've worked with them, and making it to the Inc. 5000. They're also a member of Women in Cloud as well. And we've been able to help them not only with providing, funding through our organization. We just recently helped them close their seed Series A through a series of other institutional and strategic corporate investors. So key reasons for using growth capital, we'll talk about those next. As you think of the use cases of where, growth capital can help your business, this gives you some guidelines related to that. First, being able to improve, make some improvements in your business that may help position your business for a future equity round. Think about the case study I just mentioned with Quality Interactions. They were able to improve their product. They were able to add some key people to their team, as well as invest in marketing. The other thing is that it allows you to, doing that, expansion of customer segments and expansion of product segments, expansion of your team to help drive increases in sales and marketing efforts, and can position you to grow your business in a non-dilutive way, such that it will increase the value by growing your sales and profitability, so that you can attract, other either equity partners, or it could position you for an acquisition as well. So with regards to how much revenue-based financing may cost me or your clients, this can give you another view. This example looks at, it's based on your 12-month trailing. So it can be up to 30% of your last 12-month revenues. So let's say, for example, if you're $1 million company, and 30% of last month, and 30% of that would be approximately $300,000. this example below gives you an example of $1 million company. And, example, it was 200,000 was the actual loan amount. It was over a 3-year term. This example is a revenue-based loan example. So their royalty rate that they were going to pay this back is 2 to 5%, and they would pay back 1.3 would be the cap. So once they've paid back the principal of 200,000 plus the additional 60%, then that is the end of that one. And there's not any penalty if it's paid off early. So you can see how it makes that work. And then let me show what this looks like if it was a term situation. In this particular example, again, it's 30%, up to 30% of the run rate of the annualized revenues. So let's say it was $1 million, similar type of thing, 200,000 in the amount of investment and principal, 3-year term. This would be a payment of, a little over 7,000 a month, and that's paid back to a cap of 1.3. And so, once the 260,000 is paid off, then that is the end of that obligation. There's no penalty or early there's no penalty for paying off early. And then to give you an idea about the documents that you need to provide to pursue these types of investment transactions, generally 2 years worth of financial statements, either provided in an Excel format, or we have a platform that can gather that information, providing revenue by customer, a debt schedule, and projections of how you look to grow, because we're looking to fund growth. A growth situation, the conversion can be 30 days, and a goal for what we seek to do is make it easy. And we've put together some documents that outline how this process works, from what you need for the underwriting process. And again, as I said, we have a Codet and Plaid that we use to sync some of this information as well. Let's see, with regards to what it's like to work with us versus other funders. Next slide, please. Just to give you an idea about what it's like as far as the impact we've had with our companies. 72% have increased their revenues, 60% have increased their profits. The average revenues increase has been 34%. 60% have added additional recurring revenues, and 61% have added additional team members. And we've been able to help them create over 800 premium wage jobs. And as I shared with you, our goal is not just to help them get access to our funding, but also funding through others. So we've been able to help them secure over almost 80% from other external, 80 million from other external funding sources. Next slide. So let's get a chance to get some of your questions that you might have with regards to what your funding requirements might be, how your questions that you might have about going through the funding journey, or questions you have about some of the information I shared.
Yeah, Kim, this one was very valuable as you stepped through it. First is I want to ask the audience, did you find value in understanding a new way of accessing funding? This is not a traditional funding route, but this is also a very powerful funding route. Put it in the chat for us. And again, Allison, thank you for texting me. I appreciate you being on the call too. Kim, as people are going to take time to put in the chat, I wanted to know is what landed you to get to this model of all the other models? What drove you to say this is the way we want to solve this access to funding?
Yeah. So, I often say, I look at what I'm doing as, if I was a founder of a life science company and I was trying to address a, very prevalent disease that can, at worst case, can make it such that, stunt people's growth, or just basically make it such that they don't even get a chance to participate, at all. I built Founders First to be the type of capital source that I wish I had available to me, to grow my 5 or 6 businesses. It's, as I shared that, our goal is to help these businesses get on the path of being a $10 million business in 2 to 5 years, and not just with an initial allocation of capital, but follow-on capital and championing to help be able to grow them and introduce and champion them to other funding sources. So with all of that, that's really what we're seeking to help them with. I wish that I had a platform like Founders First to help me with, some of the funding activity that I was seeking to do.
Oh, that is amazing, Kim. Even when we are in the Women in Cloud ecosystem, most of the founders, when they come in, they will start with like, oh, we need a VC funding or an angel funding, but they never look at all the other ways that you could get access to funding, which is, there is a corporate backed funding, there is go-to-market funding, there's just a bunch of funding available, and not many, take a moment to look at it where you don't have to let go of your equity to get the access to the funding. So I think you touched on it, but what's the best and the smartest way to take on funding?
It may sound really, most women and diverse founders bootstrap initially to get to proof of concept. Mm-hmm. And the other side of it is to, be able to get commitments of revenue, and being able to honestly being able to provide that is critical. Too often people think, oh, I got this idea and I'm gonna look for funding, and that getting the funding is the significant milestone. It needs to be viewed as funding is the method to help you achieve a milestone, not that this is, the milestone in itself. Mm-hmm. And especially as we're in, more challenging economic times right now, there's been a pullback in access to capital that's been available, in the past. And so really people are looking at, how am I, based on what this business has done, or the commitments they have, or the problems they're solving, am I going to get my money back? And if you don't clearly answer that question for people, you're not going to be able to get access to capital. And that's where it gets back to, really being able to look at the unique value proposition and the value that you're delivering to the market and to the customers you serve, and how that value exchange results in payments back to you. Oh. And so by having that clear, defined, and actually documented examples of that repayment, that's how you're going to raise additional capital.
Kim, very well said. I think should be that should be a mantra for every founder, is how fast can you return the money that you borrow or you have it? Because there is a mindset for people is, I'm taking other people's money and I don't have to return. It's not about that. You really have to work very hard to return that money. So I have a question for all the founders here. First is, you've been extremely silent. So this is my first session where I see the silence is like a norm here. So first is there any questions for Kim, or do you want me to just moderate based on what I want to learn? So if you have any question, if you can put it in the chat, that would be fabulous. So as people are going to put in the question, Kim, what I would like to know is there a business plan that's required for securing a funding from your organization, from FFCP?
So we don't fund startups. We fund businesses that have been operating, on average, they're operating 2+ years. We'll look at those businesses that may be a year and a half. And so, we're really looking at their operating activity as well as their projections of what they're planning to do going forward. I would say the majority of people that reach out to us to seek funding do provide us with a management presentation explaining who their company is, their value proposition, a bit about their strategy, and some case studies about what they've done. But we're expecting that the stage that people come to us, they're well beyond I wrote a business plan.
Got it. So the other question, which going on to the same thing is, some of them are tech companies here. How would they select about the best funding options for themselves? And how should we look at their advantages and risk of taking on funding from different sources, especially being a tech company?
Yeah, I mean, there's, if you recognize, when I mentioned I am a serial entrepreneur and Founders First is my seventh company that, I raised, not only equity capital, some from angels, some from institutional investors. I also raised debt capital as well. And being able to look at it from a standpoint of what is the appropriate capital for the stage. And then you also look at the other investors that are funding. You want to make certain not only do you have the funds, but you also have the right type of funds for what's being put in place as well.
Got it.
So you want to, and sometimes the way that you can do that is look at who else have they funded that has relevance for your type of business. The first time founder, and it could be even the first or second time founder, this can be such a daunting experience because you've not done this before. So there's lots to learn. You're operating the business, you're raising money at the first time. But the other thing to have to recognize as a founder, your job, especially in the role of CEO, is not just operating the business and that type of thing. It's making certain you have the right type of capital to grow your business given the stage that you're in. And that sometimes can be interesting experience for first-time founders because they don't know about how to raise money. They've never raised money before. They may not have the network to support that. And to that extent, getting involved with organizations that provide you with access to others that have successfully done what you want to do is critical. Because that's the journey of a tech founder.
Awesome. So Kim, I have Dana. Dana, thank you for actually putting in a question. I appreciate it. I will definitely send you a Starbucks gift card for doing that bold statement and also taking a bold step to ask a question. Her question, Kim, is she has a loan that has a higher interest rate. Currently, if we were accepted into this program, can we merge the loan over to your program?
Yeah, I mean, generally we refinance people out of those. Wow. And don't feel bad. A lot of the money that you can get access to quickly by doing Google searches or that type of thing. Lots of companies we've seen have gone through that exercise to get access to funds. So it's a lesson learned, but we many times have refinance folks out of that.
Got it, Kim. I also have one question that was sent to me through the text is how much funding, how do you decide how much capital you need at this current moment? Is there a formula? Is there an Excel spreadsheet that you have that people can decide how much funding or capital they would need before they apply?
So generally, if you look at the good things that I would go through and say, from what was not available when I, did my first companies, you can look at some companies like, or some platforms like Crunchbase to see how much did a company like mine raise, and that can give you some ideas. And then the other side of it, look at the funders. What is the amount of funding that they typically fund? And then, taking these two things, look at if I were to raise that amount of funding, what things am I going to get done in order to achieve that? I find so many times that first-time founders or folks that have not, done a substantial amount of fundraising ask for either sometimes too much or too little. And if you don't quite get that right, given the stage of the business and what you're going to do with it, you can, unfortunately turn off an investor that would otherwise be interested in what you're doing.
Yeah, and Kim, once Dana kind of applies for this particular investment approach, if she qualifies, great. If she's not, she can come back to Women in Cloud ecosystem too. We do have alternative sources of funding that is available. So just keep engaged, Dana. So that way, we want to make sure you as a founder have access to funding to grow your company, and you have to figure out which is the right funding source to get you there without losing your equity.
Yeah, and I would even go through and say that you shouldn't just look at one source, you should look at multiple sources. That's, as a founder, that's how I look at things. It's not just one. And then the other factor, it's not a one and done. It just may be, this is just not a fit right now. But, you can definitely look at multiple sources as well as take in multiple sources. I know that you guys that have the opportunity with the Microsoft, opportunity that you can proceed, and then there's the funding that we provide. But it's not a no if it's not a fit at this time. It's more of a not now.
Totally, well said, Kim. And Dana, one of the things that with alternative funding, regular funding, and then based on how you execute your project, there's funding always available. It's just being creative about it. And that's kind of the, aha moment that I'm taking, Kim, as soon as you were talking through the presentation. I have another question from Yasmin is, can you keep applying if you're being denied? And of course, after hitting milestones.
Oh, most definitely. Again, it goes back to, it's not, no, it may be, think of it as not now.
Yeah.
And because generally what we do is we provide feedback about, well, these are the areas that you need to improve in to be able to help you.
Cool. So I think we are 3 minutes away from this session, Kim. Is there any advice or insights you want to share with the founders? I don't see any questions come through, so I think
I would just thank you again, Tetra, for allowing me the opportunity to share this insights with your members. And I know that the fundraising journey can be a bit daunting, especially if you haven't done it before, but you can get through it. As I said, there's such great resources now. And the cool thing is generally when you find, kind of your tribe of people that are doing either similar work that you're doing, similar, categories, be it they're a founder going through this too, or they're of a certain type of business or technology or something, they're generally interested in sharing that journey with you. The other thing I would say is that, pick those funders that are going to provide smart money, those ones that are going to provide more than just a check. They're going to provide advocacy, advice, their network to help you with growth. That's really key as well. And with that, I'll wish you guys a good rest of your day. And thanks again.
And again, thank you everyone for joining today, and follow Kim and I on LinkedIn. And from the Women in Cloud, we would love to welcome you to be part of all the activation. And if you're looking for funding, either through, Founders First, or through Microsoft Capital Fund, or through Master Fund. There are multiple funds that are available. So please come in, explore, learn from us, be part of the community, because the more you're connected, the more you're connecting with everyone here, the money comes very easily towards your business. So with that, have a fantastic week and a weekend, and we look forward to checking in with you for the next session. Thank you, Kim.
Thanks.